Hello there, my name is Luciano Oliveira. I am a Brazilian attorney. Today I'm here in Rio de Janeiro and we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of investing in pre-construction properties in Rio de Janeiro. So there are advantages and disadvantages, and we're going to be talking about some of the main ones. Important to note, like some of the neighborhoods like Ipanema, Leblon, Copacabana, new developments, they are rare because, as you can imagine, the shoreline has been built out entirely for a while. So the exception is going to be when there is like a really old building that they are going to basically get rid of and build a new one in that place, or some miracle, they get an authorization to build an entire new building in a place where there was no building before. The city has been resisting because the idea is to preserve access to nature, access to sunlight. So the idea is not to allow more development by the shoreline, but that happens from time to time. Some of the potential advantages for a pre-construction purchase is that you usually gonna buy an apartment for substantially less than you would pay for an apartment that was ready to move in. There is always some level of risk that this development, that this construction is not gonna be finished, and in exchange of assuming this risk, you're gonna be allowed to pay a discounted price. That's how it works. Another advantage is buildings are gonna be more up to date in terms of technology, in terms of design, in terms of features, and there is also the possibility of customization, right? The floor plan. Usually it's much easier to customize a floor plan in Brazil than it is in other countries like the US, and overall it's a less risky transaction than when you are buying a property from a private party, particularly if you are not being represented by a law firm. Because when you buy from an established developer, usually the developer must follow some rules in terms of keeping the capital for the construction separate from his operational fund. So if the developer goes bankrupt, there is usually a substantial part of the money paid by the buyer separate in a separate account. So this is like one of the safety mechanisms established by law, by the government, to try to make purchase of pre-construction properties in Rio de Janeiro safer for the buyers. On the other hand, just like I said, it's not ironclad. It may happen that the developer goes bankrupt, and then you're gonna need to probably hire a lawyer to see your money back. So on the other hand, it's not guaranteed, right? So there is also some level of risk as well. In Rio de Janeiro, it's not rare for the construction to be delayed. Not sure if they are too optimistic about the timelines, but more often than not, they are not gonna meet the original timeline for the development. A huge issue we have been seeing in pre-construction developments and properties is that sometimes we're gonna see a client who sign a contract with the developer, and then when it's time for this client to pay the developer is not gonna accept money from abroad. At that moment, like the client unfortunately signed a contract already, they may end up losing their down payment. That's the best case scenario. Actually, worst case scenario, they still need to pay additional money, and it's a tough situation. Before getting into a contract, you should have the contract reviewed by an attorney who could also speak with the developer and make sure you are able to actually buy the property. We have, for instance, partnership with currency exchange banks who may be helpful on those type of situations, and we can also review the contract to make sure you understand what you are getting yourself into. It's not rare for particularly US buyers to sign a contract, and sometime after signing the contract, they are able to pay the seller somehow, but they come to us and say, listen, I paid off the property, but the seller says I still need to pay an increment in value for the property. What does that mean? And that's something that some developers are gonna do. You're not gonna have a penalty for paying off the property ahead of time. However, if the property increases in value, usually the developer is gonna charge you for that increase, although you didn't receive at that point the the property, okay? And that's customary in the market. But the point is, if you want to know exactly the terms of the contract that you're signing, a simple consultation with an attorney could help you be on the same page and avoid misunderstandings and frustration later on. In terms of due diligence, usually we do the due diligence on the developer. We usually know if they are healthy from a financial perspective. We track the latest developments, the latest constructions to see if they're being delivered on time, if there are any issues. Sometimes developers, they overstretch their finances and they get into bad places from a financial perspective, and we are able to trace most of the main developers in the market. So it may be worth a consultation to check on the developer as well. I hope these tips were helpful, and follow us for more videos.